Welcome. In this video we are going to talk about the addition and setup of a controllable automated Control4 outlet switch. Talk about what I'm going to be using this for. We'll go over the specifics of how it presents and how you program it into the Control4 system using Home Composer. So before we get into that, specifically this is a Control4 plug-in outlet switch, and yes, I do need the glasses to read text this small. Model number C4, V as in violin, OSW 120, and WH, I presume, because it's white. I believe they do make a dimmer version of this, but my application, I just need simple straight up on and off, so that's what I opted for here. There are two outlets, one on either side, and it is pretty big with the plug being on the bottom, so be advised, depending on what you're going to plug into this and where you're going to plug it into, it's either going to block a top outlet if you plug it in a bottom, and you have to be able to, whatever you're plugging in, if it has power bricks or something like that, flush up to the wall, may not fit with the side outlets. Pros and cons to both approaches, I guess, if the outlets had been on the front versus on the sides. And there is one button on the top. Now, I got this specifically because I wanted to program in control of the gaming PC that's up above me here. What I generally find is that putting the PC into sleep mode doesn't always make for, let's say, the most reliable experience turning on the computer and getting back into using it after everything else in the system has been off for a little while. Specifically with the PC, sometimes sound doesn't work or is funky. Sometimes the resolution negotiation of the video card to the display comes up a little bit bonkers. And a lot of times it just necessitates restarting the computer anyway so that everything can load clean and fresh. So my plan here instead is to insert the controllable outlet in between power and the computer. I'll be able to program in a specific disablement or turn off of this outlet when the room is turned off, thus completely removing power to the computer. And then when we go to actually use the PC, grab the Control4 remote or hitting the button on the wall, we go to play PC in the living room, that will turn this switch on. It will restore power to the computer. Based on the BIOS settings, the computer will be set to essentially restore itself or power back on when power is lost and power is restored. And everything there should work great. That means every time we use the computer for a gaming session, it's going to be a fresh boot, a clean boot. Audio, video, all of that stuff will get properly renegotiated. And one of the other hassle points that I've noticed historically with a gaming PC and an LG television is that waking the computer from sleep only restores a connection of regular HDMI VRR, not specifically G-Sync. And I think it's a really cool feature that the LG TVs support G-Sync. I specifically buy NVIDIA GPUs for my gaming PC. So hey, I want to light all the lights. I want the specific bells and whistles enabled for my gaming session. Now, of course, you don't have to use this just for a computer. It's just a regular controllable switch. So if you imagine other applications in your home automation configuration or your home theater, whatever it may be useful in a variety of situations. Maybe you can't remotely trigger subwoofers, and in power sensing reliability is something that you don't trust. You could use this to enable or disable subwoofers through a Control4 system. Maybe you have other remote elements or removed elements of your system that are not in your rack or other places, other rooms. The degree of control that you would get to be able to command and control and automate power on, I think, could be very useful in a lot of applications. This thing was about $100 or so, I think, give or take, MSRP. And of course, I got it from my awesome friend and local Southeast Michigan Control4 and home theater integrator installer, Mr. Dan DiCarlo at AudioVision. If you need help with the Control4 system, reach out to me or post in the comments. I can put you in touch with Dan and he can help you out with this and a whole lot of other things. So I'm going to get it installed, I'm going to get it programmed, and we'll take a look at it at Home Composer. So hopefully you leave with a pretty good understanding of what the thing does and how to apply it within a system. Before I plug this into the rack, I did want to just show what this looks like kind of sitting in a regular outlet, and acknowledge that the button on top is a power button, and it does actually illuminate depending on the power state, the current power state of the switch. And here we are installed. Of course, I keep my gaming PC up on top of the rack. Power cord coming down, tied up nicely on one of those brackets. And then now formally plugged in to the strip, the big power strip that runs up and down, but now plugged in to that Control4 switch. If you're wondering, the black thing is a Morley hum extractor. One of the other fun elements of PC gaming is I sometimes get a lot of noise, buzzing, power buzzing, primarily through HDMI to the audio system, depending on where and how it's plugged in. So I do use these ground lifter hum extractors to eliminate that buzz. But that's it for hardware installation. Let's take a look at software. All right, so let's take a look here in Home Composer. I have the latest version installed, 3.4.2, and as mentioned, when Dan brought the switch over, he already pre-added the switch to the configuration. That kind of action is something that you need a dealer to do in the Control4 ecosystem. You cannot add your own devices and manage certain elements of the configuration yourself that way in Home Composer. But the power switch is here. We have it offering the new style of settings interfaces. There is still the full kind of historic property list, but they're presenting a lot of their devices now with kind of this more contemporary looking UI for setting it up and managing it. So this is pretty much all default settings for the power outlet, the power switch itself. We can control colors, on colors, off colors. By default, it's blue when it's on, and it's black or not illuminated actually as well when it's off. And we can see that down here, the LED behavior set to follow the load. The LED intensity when load is off is 0, so nothing illuminated, and it's black anyway. LED intensity when load is off, 255, so we're full on blue there. There are some additional controls here. You can run the outlet with some auto on and auto off timings, which is pretty neat if that could prove useful for how you may intend to use the switch itself. Notice that we can actually do programming around the switch and around the switch's button. So there's some settings and specific programming triggers and options around both. And then the last page is just general information. Device status is online. It's plugged in to power, even though at this moment right now the switch itself is off and not passing power through to the thing connected to it. And we can see driver information, firmware versions, and stuff like that. There are a couple triggerable actions out of here, but as an end user, generally speaking, not anything that we're going to mess around with. I love how they put documentation in here. Super helps kind of learning the ins and outs, controls, settings, and options of devices within Home Composer itself, and then the LUA screen, of course, so we can see certain details about the operation and the communication within the Control4 system of the device we're looking at. Kind of a neat little trick. If you double click on a device, you can get an activatable little window that pops up. So if you ever want to like point control something while you're programming, testing things out, you can do that, and this is real time. So if the system status changed right now and the switch came on, this on-off indicator would move. So pretty neat. Keep that in mind when you're in Home Composer. You can double click on a lot of items and get that special kind of pop-up control detail. The button itself doesn't really present with much here, but again, it is discretely programmable from the switch. So if we take a look at the programming as well, if I look at the device actions around the power switch, and again, we can program both around the button and around the switch. We can command the outlet itself to be on and off. We can command certain elements of the LED control, and we can check conditionals to see is the switch on, is the switch off, and some other related items. The button itself, again, has similar commands and similar conditionals that you can trigger specifically when the button is pressed versus not. If you have this thing plugged in away somewhere like I do, I'm never going to really be pushing that button, so I wouldn't want to tie necessarily any programming to the physical actuation of the button. My programming I want to be tied around the operation of the switch itself. So I kind of had a little snafu here. Actually, I had Dan put it next to the PC in the theater, but we're actually really using this in the living room. So I'm going to have him probably at some point move the device down into the other room. And the way that I'm using this, if we look at the programming, so in the living room, right, when amongst the living room events, when the video selection changes, and if the living room selected device is the PC, then we're going to turn that switch on. That's going to provide power through to the PC that's plugged into it. The PC formerly having been powered off, upon restoration of power, the BIOS is set to boot the PC to an on state. We're always getting that clean and fresh boot. Conversely, on power off, when the room is powered off, if the switch is identified, the outlet, I probably should call this thing outlet. Actually, I keep saying switch, but it's an outlet itself. If the outlet is on, we're going to delay a little while, and then we're going to turn that power outlet off. So I put in a delay of 60 seconds here. This is specifically because we're dealing with the PC, and sometimes I might expect that when the PC is manually powered down before the room is powered off in Control4, that's when Windows may be applying some updates and things like that. So I wanted to give it some lag time so that updates can be finished and we're not interrupting something that the PC might be doing. This does mean that there's a little bit of maybe usability lag or confusion if you power the system down and then immediately try to turn the PC back on. So I will have to remember that. Maybe I'll play around with this delay a little bit. Actually, it may be feasible for us to just take the delay out anyway, because fundamentally in the workflow of managing power because of this type of device, when we're done using it, we will use the keyboard or we'll use the controller in the Steam Deck UI, the big picture UI, to turn the computer off, and then we can see, hey, is it applying some updates? Maybe then we should just wait until those updates are completed before we go turning the room off and depowering the computer. That's probably a wiser way to go. There's one other little loophole in here. I don't want to get too far into this because it's really more about Control4 programming than it is about the outlet itself, but unfortunately there is a bit of a challenge turning on that outlet to a specific, when you're controlling a specific source device for a living room like this. And the problem is we don't have a trigger for power on of a room. We only have a trigger for video selection change. So if somebody actually was using the computer, turned off the room while the room had the PC as the video source selected, and then later on the next day, whatever it might be, they come back and they turn on the room back to that same device, the video selection changed event doesn't actually trigger, because even though we turn the room off and then on again, we didn't actually change the video source, which means that the switch itself wouldn't turn back on and the PC wouldn't boot up and you'd kind of be standing there looking at a blank screen. So we do have a little bit of a manual other thing that we need to keep in mind when we use this, is that before you go to turn off the system from the PC, we always turn it back to the Apple TV and then we turn the room off. And then that gives us the ability to start the room directly to the PC or to any other source. But if you start the room directly to the PC, Control4 is registering that as a video selection change, and then this if condition would actuate. I did try as well with the thought to add a power off conditional that says if the room selected device is not the Apple TV, change it to the Apple TV. But as we tested that didn't actually seem to work, and I think that has to do with the devices in the room and things powering off, and then the script running after the fact, and the LG TV wasn't exactly following the input selections and stuff like we would have wanted it to. So I took that out, and we'll just have to do a little bit of manual control, manual, whatever, but we're used to it. It's a PC, and in effect, adding PC to an AV room setup comes with certain limitations and complications for sure. But that's how the power outlet presents in Control4 Home Composer, and some of the things that you can program and use around it. Pretty cool. And there you have it, the Control4 outlet switch. So not a whole lot to it, but it's the kind of device that in a certain situation, solving a certain problem in your setup really could be a lifesaver. And if you watch some of my earlier videos about kind of the PC in the living room type setup, controlling the PC state and making everything work properly has been a bit of a thorn in my side. I should have just bought one of these a long time ago. I did experiment with another type of powered outlet. If you go to Amazon, you can find all kinds of them. Alexa powered, all of the different types of home automation assistant things, remote ones with switches. But hey, I have this very exact and powerful Control4 automation system. So why was I fiddling around with something more discreet, something with its own button, when I could have just had the control and management and automation tied right into the Control4 system to begin with. Pretty stupid of me to go looking for a more involved solution with extra bits and parts and elements to it versus just having done this one a long time ago. Again, if you're interested in any Control4 help or some other home theater needs and whatnot, I can give you that contact for Dan DiCarlo at AudioVision. He can get you all set up like he has me in my home here. Otherwise, if you'd like to support the channel and this video helped you as well, please leave a super thanks, PayPal, Venmo tip, become a channel member. And absolutely, please shop with all my affiliates down in the description. Amazon, Audio Advice, Target, Newegg, Best Buy. There's a whole gamut of links down there. So please check them out. Use them every time you or your spouses or family, whatnot, shops at those stores. It's much appreciated, and it lets me do all kinds of more cool stuff here so that I can make videos for you and talk all about it. Otherwise, please do the regular YouTube stuff too. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, share the video, leave a comment. Let's discuss. Did you find, have you ever found automating power state using a controllable switch to be useful, a lifesaver in your AV, home automation, home theater type config? Share in the description. Let folks know what did it solve for you, and what solution did you use for it. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Come on back for more home theater, home automation, discussion, and fun.